This is the Art and Business of Writing podcast, connecting you with writers and experts who can help to improve and promote your writing. I am with young adult author Melody Robinette. The 27-year-old has recently published 2 books, Ash and Oaken, from her Underground trilogy. She's been writing since the age of 15 and is married to an amazing husband and has 2 super fat cats. Melody, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, hey, let's start from the beginning with you. Can you tell us when you first realized that you were a writer?
Well, I think it sort of was more of a gradual transformation. Whenever I was really young, I had a huge imagination, so I would just play by myself. I didn't like playing with other kids as much because they slowed my imagination down and they didn't have the same ideas as me. They were very black and white, and I had all of these huge things I wanted to do. So I would play by myself and come up with these huge scenarios with like my stuffed animals and my dolls and stuff like that. And that was when I was really young. But then when I got older, I don't remember when Harry Potter came out, but that was the first big series that I read and just sort of fell in love with the whole world. And I thought, if I can use my imagination and put it on paper and actually have other people read it, that would actually be really cool. So I came up with The Underground when I was 15. And I started writing it then, but I lost it. It was a very tragic internet deleting incident. So basically that's all I did at that age. And then I came back to it when I was 20.
And what inspired you to come back to it, at that age?
Yeah, actually my friend, she was writing a short story and asked me to read it. And I told her I had written a couple chapters of a book several years ago, and she said, well, why don't you write it again? You can just revisit it, can't you? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess I can. And for my birthday, she gave me a journal that basically just told me that I should start writing, and I did, and kind of reimagined the whole plot, made it a little more interesting, a little less 15-year-old style, added characters and stuff like that. And so I wrote half of Oaken on journals in freehand. So that wasn't that didn't work very well. But I ended up having to put that into my computer.
That's interesting that you say that though, because I'm definitely a big lover of like free writing, like kind of writing in a journal first and then transferring things over.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much the only way I write. I can't write any other way.
My brain is just so fast for my hand that I can't seem to put down what I'm thinking quickly enough when I'm writing. And then editing is just a pain whenever you have to write it out, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you can.
But I actually, it's strangely not strange, but it's funny you say that because yesterday I was just trying to get my thoughts together about what I wanted to do in the future with future projects. And I just started writing my thoughts down, like stream of consciousness on paper. And that actually got me pretty organized and got things situated in my brain. So writing does help, I think, more in the note-taking aspect for me. And when I'm actually writing like dialogue and narrative, though, I have to be typing it.
Ah, interesting. I like the process, though. I like how every writer that I speak to has a process that they've kind of honed and made their own. So I guess when you first started off, like, what were some of the fears and challenges that you faced in becoming a writer? Like, when you recognized, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to put this series together. I've got these journals. Like, what were some of the fears?
Well, I was actually very optimistic when I started it. I'm always a dreamer, but I've gotten more realistic over the years. But when I started it in my 20s, I was like, I'm going to be the next J.K. Rowling, and they're going to make a movie out of my books, and I'm going to star in the movies. It's going to be awesome. So I didn't have any fears until I finished my first book, and then I started sending out query letters, and then I got some rejections back, actually all rejections back. And I was like, oh, so people they're not as excited about this as I thought they would be. So I guess the reality of actually having to get it out there and have agents pay attention to it was what was really scary. And that's actually sort of why I looked into self-publishing, because I had everything in my hands at that point.
Yeah, I always find that to be one of the scariest parts of writing is just you're putting yourself out there more than any other profession. Like you are, kind of putting your thoughts, your processes in front of people, and you have no idea how they're going to respond to that.
Yeah. and most have responded really well and really liked it. And then there's like just a couple that, stab you in the heart because they didn't like it or it didn't mesh with them. And you're just like, oh, why not? Why don't you like it? But you have to develop that thick skin whenever you put your book out there.
It's great that you mentioned that because it's kind of my next question is like, how do you overcome that? Like, how do you overcome the rejection letters, the kind of the disappointment, and then move forward?
Yeah. Well, the rejection letters, they did hurt the first couple times. And then the next several I got, I was like, okay, moving on to the next one. I just had to keep writing because that's why I did it in the first place. I love writing. It's not about making money or becoming famous. Yes, that was a dream of mine, but that's not why I write. I would still do it whether people read it or not. It's just what I do. But negative reviews, those are a little bit more, they get in your head a little bit more of things that they say, and really they tell you not to read them. But, published my first book, I can't not read my reviews. So, and it's been overwhelmingly positive for the most part, but then you just get like that one, it just, crushes you for just at least a day.
Yeah.
And you have to pick yourself up and get over it.
Yeah, no, it's funny how, you could get 50 positive reviews, but that one negative review just vibes so wrong with you,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because my books are young adult fantasy, and I'm a young adult. I was a young adult. I'm not young anymore. I was a young adult when I wrote them. But the reviews were from like older men. So I was like, why do I care what this old man thinks about my young adult fantasy? But I did. So I don't know. You just kind of have to take what positive you can from it. If they did give you any critiques at all, you can think about them. And if you think that's something that you need to work on, you can. If you think that book just probably wasn't for them, then it wasn't for them, and you can just get over it.
Well, that's a great way of looking at it, though. Being able to, look at your criticism and grow from it. So it's a strong thing to do. Like, what's the one thing that no one ever tells you about being a writer?
They don't tell you that you have to make yourself do everything. It sounds like a romantic career of sorts that people just write and they're just these, like I picture J.K. Rowling in a castle somewhere just, effortlessly writing. And it's not like that. You have to really force yourself to do it sometimes, even when you're tired or you don't have the motivation or you have all this other stuff to do. You have to, like, I get up every single morning 2 hours before I have to just to write, because if I don't, then I won't get anything done.
Very true. I find it to be very true as well. I get up early myself because I tried writing, in the evenings, and I was like, this isn't working. It just doesn't work. One, I don't feel fresh. Two, the disruptions just overwhelm you at times.
Right. And then you have all the stuff that went on throughout the day. You're just bogging down your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't write at night.
So let's look into your current writing life a little bit. Talk about what you're working on right now.
I'm working on so many things. I kind of have different stages of several books. I kind of always have that. So right now, my third book in the Underground trilogy is off with the editor, and that's Alder. And whenever I get that back, I'll go through what she has edited. So I think of that as something I'm working on, but I'm not physically working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another book that I've previously written called Dream Snatchers. That's a standalone young adult fantasy that I'm going through and I write pretty bare bones the first draft. And so what I've been doing lately is going back through and adding a little bit more color and sort of talking more about the scenery and stuff like that, because I'm really bad at just sort of writing the dialogue and not talking about what's going on. So I'm doing that right now with Dream Snatchers. And then I also have a couple books sort of brainstorming mode right now that I will jot notes down and stuff like that.
Wow, so you have a lot happening right now.
Yeah, my brain's always whirring.
And you said you're the third book for the trilogy. When do you expect that to be released?
I'm hoping in September. It just all depends on editing and formatting and stuff like that.
Talk to me a little bit about the editing process. Like, once you finish your draft or your manuscript and you give it to the editor, what happens?
Well, I just switched editors, so I have a new one now, but I think generally it's the same. You just send them the manuscript and it just depends on what level of editing you get. Because I'm an English teacher, I have pretty clean manuscripts to begin with because I'm so crazy about grammar and making sure everything's, worded correctly. So they just really have to find like missed commas or words that are homophones or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they go through and point those out to you and you fix them. And sometimes if something doesn't mesh well or you are repeating something in a page or in a paragraph, they'll talk to you about that and you just go through. And I usually just do one tweak after that. I don't really go back and forth with editors.
And so from the editor, then what happens?
Then I send it to the formatter. Not everyone does. Some people format it themselves, but I don't trust myself to do something like that because it has math stuff involved and I don't do math. And it usually only takes about a week after I've sent it to the formatter to get it back. And then you upload everything on Amazon. And usually the tough part is actually waiting because I like to set release dates so people know that it's coming, and I can talk about it on Facebook and social media and stuff like that. So it's not just like, oh, hey, my book's available. I set it up for pre-order usually. And so when I do that, I have to wait. And usually my book's ready way before then.
What's it feel like once you've kind of done all that and it's like you see yourself on Amazon?
It's sort of surreal. And then, I don't know, it's just things like that don't really hit me until later on when people have started reading it, I guess. I think the biggest shock is whenever people read the books. I don't know, I'm like, I don't expect people to read it. I don't know, like, that just doesn't go through my brain. I'm like, okay, it's on Amazon now. That's cool. Like, I know my family's going to read it, my friends, but then people that I've never met before read it and they connect with the characters and they like them and they want the next book. They actually get mad at me that I haven't put out my third book yet. I'm like, oh, dang, okay. Because I have cliffhanger endings, so kind of like Hunger Games, how it just kind of leaves you hanging. I kind of do that, so they don't like that I don't have the third book out yet. But I think that part's what's crazy, not actually seeing it on Amazon, but actually having people respond to it.
Right. With regards to your writing process, like how do you approach writing? Like when you want to start a new book or start a new project, what do you do?
Usually it starts with like an idea of a world or a situation, which is interesting because my stories are pretty character driven, but I'll come up with the idea and I usually let it brainstorm for quite a long time. So I came up with something recently that's currently being called the Zodiac series. It might not continue to be called that, but I came up with that several months ago and I'm just letting it brainstorm, and I actually have plotted it and everything, but I haven't written it yet because I'm not ready. So I let it stew in there because I'll come up with new ideas just randomly out of nowhere and I don't want to force it too quickly, but I do start to like sketch out the characters. I like to know their names and I like to know what they look like and what their worlds are going to be like. I don't know, whenever I really just put pen to paper and actually just start writing, it's usually like a wave of inspiration that makes me want to start.
Now, with your Underground series, like how did you come up with the concept of the world itself? I mean, I know a lot of people like myself who live in the nonfiction sphere just marvel, like, how do you do that? How does that come about?
That's really hard to explain.
Is it?
Because I don't know. Like, I know that whenever I started writing it, I already knew I wanted it to be an underground world, but I can't tell you why. I knew I wanted the world to be separate from the regular world. So I don't know where I came up with the underground. I really have no idea. It just was there. And I was 15, so it may have been more than that, but I really don't remember where that came from. It just sort of, the idea of the underground came, and then I just sort of got the sense of it. Like, I knew I wanted it to have extremely big trees. Like, that's the biggest thing, my favorite thing about it, that the trees there are almost the size of redwoods or larger than that. And I just picture that really well. And then just random magical things that I'd never heard of before, I wanted to add. I don't know, honestly, where it comes from. I can't.
The mind of the fiction writer. I'll never understand it.
Yeah, me either.
But it's so cool, though. It's so cool, when you hear people talk about like the worlds they create and the languages they develop.
Oh, I don't do that. That's too much.
So Like, where does the inspiration for your ideas come from?
I think I get it from everywhere, really. Like, I take a lot of my personal feelings about the world and try to put them into my stories without it being too preachy or too, like, this is the moral of the story. You know, the underground, the main theme for that, I think, is open-mindedness and seeing people not as what they appear to be or what their labels are, but what really happened to them. You know, everyone has a story. It's not just black and white, good and evil. There's shades of gray everywhere. And, you know, you can have a good guy that has all of these flaws, and you can have a bad guy that actually has reasons for why they're acting this way. So I think I take stuff like that, just ideas that I'm really passionate about, and try to put them into them. And I guess I get inspiration from books, movies, just things that I come across. Pull it from everything. There's no one thing, I guess.
Like, do you have any like writing rituals that you have? Like, you know, do you have like a place you like to write or certain things that you like to do as you write?
I really like to have coffee while I'm writing or tea or something. I have to have that. There's something comforting about just a warm cup of coffee or tea while I'm writing. And I tend to like to write outside of my house. During the school year, I'm a teacher, so I can't do that during the week. I have to wake up early and I write in my living room. But if I'm ever out, I have to go to a coffee shop because they have just this perfect atmosphere that just inspires me for some reason.
How often do you write?
I write every day, not necessarily a certain amount every day, but I make sure that I sit down and do it. Or just sit there in front of whatever work I'm doing and I either write or I don't, I guess. But I make sure and do it every day.
I find that writing can be sort of like love-hate sometimes, you know? Which part of the writing process drives you crazy?
I think when I have to change things, when I have to edit things that I know aren't working, but I've already written, and that kills me. I hate deleting scenes. I hate that because I feel like everything's important. And like everything's important to the characters, and it's just really hard for me to cut out things, even though I know that they're supposed to not be there. I hate that.
You know, on the opposite end, what do you really love about writing?
I love going back and reading it, I guess. Sometimes I don't always process what I'm saying while I'm writing it. And then when I go back, it's kind of like reading it again or experiencing it for the first time because, I don't know, my brain does something crazy when I'm writing and I don't always know what's going on. I just let things happen. But when I go back and read it, that's actually the best part for me, really.
Now, about writer's block, you know, every writer kind of gets to a point where they stumble at times. What do you do to get over your slumps when you have them?
Usually when I'm having trouble writing, I'll go back and read through all the works I've done and just do like a really light edit, but to kind of remind myself that I can write and that I can finish books and I'm just in a slump. And I try to read other people's books too, because I'll get to a point where I'm just writing and I realize I haven't read much lately. I think that could be part of the problem, that I'm not feeding my creativity like I should.
It's good that you said that. How important is it, do you think, for writers to read?
That's how you learn to write. In the very beginning, how do you learn to write? You have read all of these books. I mean, I read Harry Potter and I read all these other little kid books when I started. So I had all of the, you know, the way things flow in my mind already. And it's just like learning from the masters, basically.
Let's look at the business side of writing now. How do you promote yourself in your writing?
I am still trying to figure that out. It's always so tricky with how things are changing so fast. But I have a Facebook page and I share things on there and I try to get people to share things as well. And I post on Instagram sometimes and do all the hashtags and all of that. And I do Twitter. But actually, the most successful thing I've had was setting my first book to free, to do the free promotion. Absolutely. And I don't understand the algorithms necessarily of Amazon. They have all these magical algorithms and ways that your book can get up into the top 100, but somehow that happened for mine and I set mine to free, and then the night of the first day it was free, it got up into the top 100 free books. And when that happened, just it skyrocketed and all these people started downloading it and they started buying Ash, and people I'd never communicated with were buying my book. And that's the most important thing I've done because I only have so far of a reach on Facebook and stuff like that.
How long does the book sit under the umbrella of being free before it goes back to being a paid book again?
You have the option of using 5 days. I only used 3. And so every 90 days, you can set your book to free for however long, however, as in 1 to 5. So if you want to just do 1 day, you can do 1 day throughout a 90-day period every couple weeks. But I don't know why you'd do that. I think it's better to do a chunk of time so that you can be in that top 100 for longer.
With regards to writing, do you have any like tools that you like to use, like Evernote or Scrivener, that help you with your writing?
I've been told about Scrivener, and I looked at it. I just was so stuck in my Word program mind that I just never moved on to that. I just do Word. That's really all I use. And I like use journals and stuff to do notes, and that's really all I do. Yeah.
Oh no, it's cool. You know, every writer's got their thing. Some people are very techie, some are very simplified. So hey, if Word is your thing, Word is your thing.
Yeah,
it's all about the end result, right?
Right. I'm a linear writer too, so I don't have issues with writing random scenes and then putting them together. I just write from beginning to end. Do you not do that?
Huh? Oh no. Well, see, I'm nonfiction, so I skip around.
Right.
I can jump from section to section, you know.
Oh, right.
You just gave a great tip about Amazon. What other tips do you have that you could offer writers about self-promotion?
Man, that is the number one for sure. There's a couple of things people can do that I haven't done, but I have friends that are really successful with it. Getting on BookBub is sort of difficult, and I haven't actually gotten on BookBub either, but it's a place where people can read your book and review it, as well as there's this website you can put your stuff on. It costs a lot of money though. That's the only thing, is that with promotion, it costs so much. That's why I haven't done a ton of it. But with Amazon, it's completely free to do that. So I think that one just knocks it out of the park. But be prepared to pay, I guess. If you want to do a ton of promotion, it does cost money, unless you do the free thing on Amazon.
Have you done any like signings or anything like that?
I have a signing set up at Barnes & Noble locally, but I wouldn't say that would necessarily be a ton of promotion because it's just my town, and it's kind of hard to get word out further than just the immediate area. So I wouldn't say that would be the most successful way to get yourself out there. For sure in your hometown, and it's a fun experience, but promotion-wise, I think that's not going to necessarily get you a ton of sales.
Let's shift into the kind of the fun section, I like to call it, where I pick your brain a little bit, ask you some fun questions, and we come in for a landing. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So which authors or writers do you admire most?
Well, I think I've said her name a billion times already, but obviously J.K. Rowling is the queen of all writing, I think. I can't believe she can weave those stories with the amount of plot lines she has, like billions of plots that connect and work throughout the entire series. It just baffles me. I have trouble with 3 books, and she did 7 very long books. So obviously she's the queen. Also, I really like John Green a lot because of his characters are so unique. Each one is just, you can tell that he gave a lot of thought to them, and he gives them these little quirks that are just so relatable. And I really try to learn a lot from him about characterization because he just really is probably one of the best at that. Let's see. I love Jodi Picoult, actually. She's not a young adult author, but she does a ton of research for her books, and I wish I had the time to do what she does. But I mean, she will go for one of her books. She wrote The Plain Truth. She went and lived in an Amish community just to research for her book, and she does that with everything. And so every time I read her books, it's like I'm reading almost a nonfiction because she has done so much research on what she's talking about that I just feel like I'm learning things when I read her stuff.
Which literary character would you be and why?
I think I'm a lot like Katniss. If you had to compare me to any, I'll do young adult since that's my genre. Because I'm really a protector of people I care about. So if something happened to one of my siblings and I had to step up, I would. That's just the type of person I am. I see myself as pretty independent.
Which book is your go-to book on writing, business, or professional development?
I love the book On Writing by Stephen King. It's just, he's very knowledgeable about the writing craft, and he's kind of no nonsense about it too. He doesn't let you get away with things. He's like, just so you know, this is how it's going to be. So, and I've cut down some adverbs because he says that adverbs are bad.
Yeah, what was his quote? The road to hell is paved with adverbs.
Yeah. I have some adverbs that I do think about that a lot whenever I'm writing. I'm like, okay, I don't need to say how they said this. I can just say he said, and it's fine.
What's the best advice you've ever received with regards to writing?
To make yourself do it every day, to make time for it. Because I used to say, like, oh, I wish I had more time to write, or I wish I could do this, but I have all these other things. And you have to make the time to write. And that's what I did. And so that's how I have been writing as much as I have lately, because I just am like, okay, there's no excuses. I have to do it.
And my last question for you is, how can our listeners connect with you?
I have a Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/Melody Robinette author. You can also find me on Amazon. My 2 books, Oaken and Ash, are on there right now, and I have an Amazon author page that you can get to through those books as well. And I have a website, melodyrobinette.com, but really I connect more. I talk more to people on my Facebook page.
Well, Melody, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
It was great to talk writing with you.
I hope I didn't ramble too much.
Absolutely not. Wow, what an inspiring episode. If you weren't able to take notes, I've got you covered. Visit my website at www.chrisjonesink.com/podcast to get today's show notes, as well as access other episodes you may have missed. Be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast on iTunes. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.